If, like me, you enjoy running legacy video cards, then this video is probably for you. While these cards have been out of the spotlight for quite a few hardware generations, they have just enough power to run some of the more popular games of today, for a fraction of the price of current generation GPUs. But one cannot just play games on hardware alone. You need drivers, and this is the topic of today's video. No, I'm not going full ancient gameplays, but I do want to point out some issues that I ran into while using drivers for GPUs supported as legacy video cards from both Nvidia and AMD. But more importantly, we'll also provide fixes or at least workarounds for these issues. Let's start with AMD. The amount of popular games today that still use DirectX 11, more than 10 years after the API was released, is still quite large. TerraScale 2 cards, better known as the Radeon HD5000 and 6000 series, were among the first to support DirectX 11. And while I can understand AAA titles running poor on these cards due to their performance, or lack thereof, popular multiplayer games should still play fine, right? Not always. While 2022 was still a decent year for these old Radeons, 2023 was the first time when those cards started exhibiting a weird problem, where they could no longer initialize full screen mode. And a lot of games that failed to fall back to borderless or windowed mode would crash to desktop. No matter the driver used, the stable catalyst, the Crimson beta driver, heck, even Nemes, the issue remained. One workaround for this would be to run your games in borderless or windowed mode. For a game that has the video seemingly stuck but the audio running fine, pressing either F11 or the Alt-Enter combo can pull it out of full screen mode, allowing one to then select borderless mode, preferably, or windowed. The better fix would be to try to enable full screen mode, and apparently the Catalyst Control Center can help here. Turning on GPU scaling in the monitor settings section, then selecting the scaling mode to preserve aspect ratio, had full screen mode working again. And fun enough, full screen mode then remains available even after reverting the settings or even reinstalling drivers. But maybe the best fix is to consider using a more modern old card like the R9 I mean, it is a newer card by comparison, it is bound to have better driver support, right? As of 2021, AMD put all the GCN 1, 2 and 3 video cards in legacy support mode. With the exception of possible security patches, the intent is to have just one final driver package and then that's it. So you go to AMD's site, put in your card model, then download the recommended driver, Adrenaline 22.6.1 in this case. Run the installer and face error 182. That's even worse. No, this error. Fortunately, there are two valid fixes for this. The first one is to simply do nothing. Windows Update will then try to detect the video card, then download and install the driver package that works. So yes, as odd as it seems, trust Microsoft. But there is a downside to this approach. The driver installed by Windows Update is fairly old, and you might want to install a newer driver. This then gets us back to the AMD page, but we'll use a different approach. Punch in your card model, ignore the 22.6.1 driver, and instead scroll down until you get the previous drivers link. Click that. For your OS of choice, choose the 21.5.1 driver package. It is the most recent one before GCN 1, 2 and 3 were put to legacy driver support. Install it and you're done. Okay, so now you have the driver installed, time to play some games. If you happen to have some photosensitivity disorder or you have been diagnosed with epilepsy, this is your warning to minimize the window or have the phone screen pointing away from you. But to be honest, even if you're perfectly healthy, there is really no reason to look at what's coming next. It ain't pretty. Here we go. This Stropfest is supposed to be Doom Eternal on a GCN 1 card using the official drivers. And here was funny. Doom Eternal was launched in March 2020. The latest available drivers for GCN 1? June 2022. You think that in 2 years they'd be fixing the darn bug? because this gradual degradation of the user experience is not a game issue, it's a driver issue. This, however, can be fixed. This way both the game and this video are less likely to induce a seizure. By the way, this is my way of saying that the video is safe now. But the fix did not come from AMD, but from a small team apparently from Indonesia, in the form of third-party drivers. The package was formerly known as Nimes drivers, but now uses the name of R.id, and it fixes not only the Vulkan rendering issues in Doom Eternal, but also some performance issues with Halo Infinite. AMD's website is not the only one to recommend a bad driver package for users of legacy GPUs. Nvidia does the same due to a pretty scummy move. When releasing the GT730, Nvidia decided to use the same name for cards using the newer Kepler architecture and for the variants that use the older Fermi chips. The problem with that approach is visible when trying to get a driver package. That GT730 entry in the dropdown, is it for the Kepler or Fermi variant of the card? As almost all Fermi variant users found out from the package failing to install, it was for the Kepler variant. Less tech-savvy users will have no idea what happened or what to do next. You're stuck with a card and no drivers. Fortunately, Nvidia does supply a driver package for Fermi cards as well. Forget the 730 label on your video card and look for a package for the GT430 that shares the same GPU as the more modern, using air quotes here, modern card. Download that, install it, and you're done. As for the reason for this bad user experience, well, I don't think that AMD or Nvidia do this to sell more new GPUs. If your video card budget is $50 or less, you're not going to buy the RX 7600 anyway. There is no money for them to extract from this market segment, and they are well aware of that. I think that they simply don't care. Fixing the existing driver package, or their websites for that matter, means that development effort has to be diverted from work on current drivers for cards that do bring in some money, and put it to rework software for an architecture that will bring them $0. Not going to happen, which makes this even more frustrating. Your last driver package should have been tested to the moon and back to make sure it works. One solution would be to open source the drivers for legacy cards. You'd say, but AMD already did that, and Nvidia recently open sourced part of their drivers, and you'd be true, for the Linux platform. Nothing was open sourced for Windows for similar reasons as mentioned before. Assuming that they will release the driver code for Windows, this also requires some work to be done, setting up the repository, making sure that the code compiles, etc. Again, effort that is bound to bring them $0. As for the consumer sentiment, it's already proven that they don't care that much for it. So this is the current state of legacy cards, some still running fine out of the box, others requiring a bit of tweaking. The aim of this video is to help out with the latter. And speaking of, we're done with this one. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you for the next one.